I didn't get that memo.
All right, Commissioners, this is our first work session here, Tuesday, May 5th, 2020. And we have the Department of Emergency Services, Department of Public Works, Office of the Sheriff, Parks and Recreation, Airport, Golf Course, and Public Landings. And first, our Director of Budget and Finance, John Seaman, is going to give you an overview of the FY21 proposal and revenue projections, and then we'll take it away with our departments. So, Jonathan?
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm going to do a little introductory part, and you all have a book, which we're also going to project over here. And that's Brittany, and Brittany's going to work the computer. And so there you have the table of contents. But just to put this in context, let me just say, I wanted to mention the schedule so everybody's sort of on the same page. But so we have tonight with these four departments, and then next Tuesday, May the 12th, is a regular meeting, but it's also a budget work session after the meeting, and what's scheduled is to sort of talk about the capital budget and then make some final decisions, because really we said your proposed budget was going to come out on May the 12th. And then following that, we're going to have the public hearing, which is 2 weeks after that on May the 26th here, well, on Zoom. And then there are potentially two more in early June work sessions before you approve the budget on June the 9th. But, you know, we did sort of push everything back so we could kind of make decisions as late as possible, you know, based on the situation, so we could gather as much information as possible. So, in your introduction, page 1 is the revenue budgeted and the tax rates. And you will see as we go through here, again, county administrator's budget was put together before the pandemic. And so this is kind of when we've been saying that we've gone from about 145 to 150 approximately. The FY20 budget is 145, and we had projected going up to what shows here is 149.7, which is an increase of $4.7 million. That's not where we are really now, but we'll get to that in a minute. Then on page 2 and 3, you have the expenditure items for the budget, various departments, with the dollar change and percent change. So at the bottom of page 3 is, again, this $4.7 million increase in expenditures, which is a 3.23% increase. Following that is all of the various funds, which I won't really go through, but starting on page 4, we have a number of special funds. So, for instance, the Department of Aging is followed by the airport, and then the golf course, housing and community services, community partnerships. I mean, you can stop me at any point, but these are all just our special funds, some of which do have general fund components, but most don't. The agricultural transfer tax, and the law library, inmate welfare fund, Kent Narrows Special Revenue Fund, Narrows Point Shore, Price Creek Dredging Fund, Grove Creek, then we have the Economic Development Incentive Fund, and we have the Bridge Fund, which doesn't have anything in FY21, but it's included because it has things in FY19 and FY20. Then we have the Rural Legacy Fund, and that's followed by Sanitary Fund, and then Ski. And then Impact Fee Fund is on page 24. So, page 25, you've seen this before, but these are the revenue projections. I would focus on the FY20 budget, which is at 145, and then the revenues were estimated to be 147 before we hit the pandemic, and so now that's been written down. So the revised estimated is at 143. And then for FY '21, the county administrator's budget was at 149.7, but what we're now projecting is 141.9, or about 142. So that's what we're looking at for FY '21, and we'll talk some more about that. I mean, I know we've talked about trying to get to a flat level budget, which in this case would be, we're saying is 145. The original FY '20 budget is 145, so if we have a flat budget,
We're going to adjust that.
that would be 145, although I suppose you could say, I mean, the revised estimate for FY '20 is 143. What I'm going to show you later is a way to get from the 149 down to the 145. At least it's one option for doing that. I think we may want to talk at some point. I know County Administrator and I have talked about going lower than the 145 in line with this estimate, more like around the 142. That being what we think is probably a more realistic estimate, and kind of using the philosophy that if we have to do things later, which we probably will, because these estimates are, not precise at this point, I would say it's easier to increase later than it is to decrease later. So if we do a 145, and then we come back and say, well, it's really 142, that's harder to do if it's like October or November or something. So, but if we say it's 142 and then it turns out not to be quite so bad, it's easier to go up from there. So that's,
So can we all be in agreement that we'd like to go with
Absolutely.
the 142?
Yeah,
And
I mean, let's just cut to the
let's
chase and
play the worst
okay,
case scenario.
all right.
glad you said that.
Okay.
142.
142, okay. Next, page 26 is our positions, and this shows you FY '20, FY '21 funded positions, and so that's at 557. We then have the number of vacancies, which we're showing here is 24. So that's 24. This is always sort of a moving target, but that's 24 that we have now. In the context of you have voted for a freeze, and that there are some positions here which would, come back to, which would presumably, I think some of these probably are mission critical or COVID related, so they would come back to you. I wouldn't expect necessarily to end up with 24, because I think we, just based on our internal discussions, there are some positions like in the detention center that are kind of hard not to fill. So, but we don't really need to decide that tonight.
So the 22 are out. We've already decided the 22
Oh,
are out.
well, that's on a later page. They're out in my estimation to get to that, to 142.
Yes, yeah, they will be.
But I mean, we voted the other night to put them out.
Well, you voted
These are
to
the
have
new
a freeze. You mean all
right, freeze.
enhancements?
Yeah, so pull them out of the budget, don't even,
Oh, all right, well, okay. Then we
Other
don't
than,
need-
other than emergency services, which we left that as the amendment to it. So-
It
Yeah.
was essential services, not because we had sanitary and, whatever.
Yeah, the 22 that you're talking about, I think, Commissioner Wilson, were the enhanced, the new
Correct.
positions.
The new ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we'll get to that, yeah.
We'll get to that, and I mean, I have to say, part of what's in the book and a big focus of what the departments gave us back in January was enhancements, because their base budgets are they're just like flat, and then the enhancements were a lot of what we focus time on, so, that may be where the department's heads are at. We're now kind of saying, no, they're gone, but,
They might come back in October, but they're gone for now.
right. But they're in the book, so if you ask, they may talk about them tonight, but
Right.
anyway. Those are the enhancements. And that's listed on the following, page 27. They requested 22 positions. We're at $1.8 million. And when we did put together the town administrator's budget, we couldn't even at that point fit in $1.8 million, so we kind of reduced it to about $742,000, which basically meant funding them for part of the year. But again, that was before we got to where we are today. So following that is the capital budget, is on page 28, and you will see there were a lot of reductions that were just to get to, even to fit into the county administrator's budget. So if you go to page 31, you can see that the capital budget as requested was about $51.9 million, if you can read that.
51 or 41?
No, it was 51, then there was 10 million reduced, so it's 41.
Okay, yeah, okay.
So it was requested at 51, and then we took 10 million out to get to 41. So that's what's in the county administrator's budget right now. And, okay, then you have something we haven't really talked about this year yet, but on page 32 and 33, we did ask for the, nonprofits and what we call the outside agencies. So they have submitted requests, and you can see it there. We funded $423,000 in FY20. The requested is $893,000. What we did in the county administrator's budget, we didn't, decide on any of these, but there is about probably was about $80,000 accounted for as an increase. So again, this was back in those days. We said the 423 could grow to about 500,000, but we didn't make any decisions about which they were. That is something that you guys have always considered. But we weren't really going to go over that tonight either, unless you want to. Okay, so page 34, which is arguably the most important page in the book, because this shows you at least a way to get from the 149 down to 145. We're now saying we want to go to 142, which you won't see here, but we can talk about that a little bit. But what this does is it takes out, so the reductions are 1.2 million in PAYGO, which is basically just the general fund giving money to the capital budget. So the $1.2 million is a reduction to the capital budget. We've made some early assumptions about what could be reduced there. That's cutting from the $41 million, which we weren't going to go over tonight, but we can go over next meeting, what those actually are. Then you have the enhancement positions. So this takes out all of the enhancement positions. That's the $800,000. We had in the budget cost of living, pay for performance, that's 1.2 million. And then there is $1.4 million to sort of get to the 145. The 1.4 is slightly not completely specified because we didn't really have the freeze in place. If we hold, if we have a hard freeze and hold to it, we'll save more than that, and that will help us to get part way from the 145 down to the 142. The other things that we've had some internal discussions about. There's a few other things in there that we might propose for getting below the 145. One of the things that we've done every year is in the MOUth program. We never really budget for that, but then in the end, we always end up giving money to it anyway, so they kind of come in after the fact. So I thought this year, well, why not put it in the budget to begin with? So there's $600,000 in there for that now. So if you take that out, you just saved $600,000. So anyway, I'm just throwing that out
Well,
there.
if we pass the ordinance, we'd save 200,000 because I think we only collect 440, right?
Yeah.
So instead of giving them 600, we just give them the 440 from the solar personal property and,
Here on out.
right, and then that way,
Okay.
one way,
So we'd
instead of
save
saying 600,000,
Right.
we'll save 200,000.
Right. I'll make a note of that. But I do think there's some more from the freeze that we can reduce this number further. The other thing that we've had some internal discussions about is with the county administrator is going back to the departments and asking them to give us reductions. So if we were to say to the departments, tell me how you can save 5% of your budget. And we can do that over the next few weeks, which can then be considered as part of your deciding how to get to the 142. And they can, they'll tell us things that aren't really compensation related, because we've kind of already taken that into account, but there are things that they could reduce, such as contractual positions, such as overtime. But usually it's a matter of just, getting their creativity or thoughts on things that they could reduce. And you can't take 5% from everybody, that doesn't work. But to the extent that there are reasonable things that we could use, that'll help us to get to the 142. So that's
So you're at 145. And just briefly, where are you going to find the other 3 million? Briefly, just.
well, okay, if you do the mouth and the freeze,
Well, we've already done the freeze.
well, no, the freeze wasn't really completely included.
It was a
in here.
partial, is what he was saying earlier.
This 1.4 only includes part of the freeze. You could probably get another $1 million just for the freeze. That'd get you to 144.
Okay.
With the mouth, okay, then you're a little below 144. And then we'd look at these other savings that we think could get you to hopefully maybe 143. And then we just sort of try to get creative. I don't have the exact answer. I mean, one of the things we have talked about is, we do have a revenue stabilization fund.
We do, and that's
If we
my-
had to come up with $1 million or $2 million from that,
Right.
that would be okay too.
That's the purpose of it. And
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
that's-
not for reduction of staff.
Oh.
We went through that and it was a nightmare and
Yeah, well, one thing you haven't mentioned, we created an income
Absolutely.
stabilization fund in
Correct.
order to stable, and if ever there was something created for a use, this is the moment in the use.
Yep, I agree.
So,
Yep. I don't
So-
want the pins and needles staff and
absolutely.
we just got it to where the county's running extremely efficient, extremely well, and I think that I want to
No,
keep it that
we're
way.
funded adequately, and the
Yeah.
fact that if we can do this without hitting Rainy, when every other county in the
Right.
state's probably, we're gonna look like
Absolutely.
a
Yep.
hero anyway.
Agree. Yep.
So that's fine, and you can do that.
But I'd still like to
Yes.
see Jonathan bring back whatever
Absolutely.
he's
No, no,
have,
no.
so we can at
Yeah, yeah,
least
yeah.
put our
Yeah,
eyes
yeah.
on him and say, I mean, if there's an efficiency upgrade, I'd rather pay for the efficiency upgrade, because that could be long-term.
Right.
I like to see what creativity is.
Yeah, I want to see the
think it's a good
creativity
idea.
side, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's worth, asking people, see what
But
they come up with.
creativity's fine, but as long as there's an understanding that we are not last in, first out. That's not on the, that's not
Right,
on the
right, no,
table.
I'm not even suggesting that, I'm just saying,
Other
I'm just
places where
saying,
they
let's
can-
convey it that way right
Yeah,
now.
other places where they can save money.
Right, correct.
Right, sure.
Yes.
That's
Well-
what creativity is.
Okay.
To me, the way this plan works is that's sort of how we deal with FY21. Of course, it could be worse than that, but we'll worry about that later, if it's actually worse. But, so then we use the revenue stabilization, and then we look to FY22 to see whether we can sort of get back on track and really have a balanced budget. Hopefully without using fund balance, but we don't know that either. But I would sort of reserve all that bad stuff you're talking about, but for FY22 if it has to be. And if we get to FY22 and we can't balance,
Right.
then what we've talked about is, just because we have to put that all on the table, is, if you get to that, then you have, you talk about furloughs, or you talk about, health insurance, ways to save money, but I think we can hold that off until FY22.
Right.
That's kind of what we're saying. We hope, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's the plan. So we will go out and we'll ask for these reductions. And that's really all of the introduction.
Excellent.
So at that point, we were going to,
You know, this schedule we have here,
yeah,
somebody needs to get on the phone now because this is not going to take,
I called everyone, Jim.
tell them all to come now.
Yes.
That's what I said that earlier.
Cinco de Mayo and 7 o'clock is time. So,
We got him teed up.
right, Phil?
It's a
Well,
flat budget, I don't know how much we got to talk about.
Right.
well, I would say, the sort of dissonance here, if you could say that, is, all these enhancements are in here. When Todd and I met with all of these departments, that's mostly what we talked about was enhancements, because that was back in January and February. So there isn't that much to talk about.
Right, that's what I mean.
The other
And those
thing-
enhancements, and I'm sure everybody, you've already passed the word, is to look at,
Yeah.
It's a no for now, but we'll review it as the year goes along and see how fast things bounce back and take it from there.
Yeah, so each of these sections is about sort of their base budget, which there isn't that much to say about. Then there's the enhancements, and then there's the capital budget. And their capital budgets have some reductions in them. We can talk about that if you like. But that's what's in the book, so.
I think what's really going to tell the tale is how this quarter ending up last year's, how big a hit that is. Because we're kind of picking up both those hits, budgeting for next year, taking the full $4.5 million away. Because we're picking up the 1.9 from this year and the projected 2.1 from next year, all in one fell swoop. So, given at this time here to look at where this second quarter shapes up, that may give us some a crystal ball look into the future to see how bad or how good it might be going forward, even sooner than October, I would say.
I agree.
You figured the second quarter number is going to be in early July, mid-July, so we'll know how the big effect was.
That's the fourth quarter.
Well, our fourth quarter, second quarter of the year.
Correct.
COVID is
There you
affecting
go.
the second quarter
There you
of the
go.
fiscal
Yeah.
year.
Right.
That is going to be the disaster of all disasters, though, so it doesn't tell you much of anything.
But it's going to tell you what the hit was. Honestly, it's like Jim said, it's our fourth quarter, but it's the second quarter of everybody's normal fiscal year. So
Yeah, no,
hopefully by July.
when everyone was home, yeah.
Exactly, that's just it. So when things start opening back up, hopefully here in the next week or so, and you see, it gives a good 6 weeks into July, you never know. There's got to be hope. There's got to be hope.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay, so you want
We're
to
always hopeful here.
bring, I think DES, and I think Dr. C was
Bring them
around
in.
there somewhere.
Absolutely.
Go.
So,
All right.
Put them on the clock.
Scott and Dr. C, come on in.
We need to get Dr. C to make a ruling. We'll be at 12 people now.
I can get up.
We're okay. We're okay. I mean, there is an exemption for government.
If Dr. C gives us an exemption, we're good to go anyway. We got the.
So Dr. C, thank you for wearing your mask. I know you're protecting us against you.
Somebody's got to set an example.
Or himself from us.
No, from protecting us from himself by wearing that mask. At least that's the politically correct thought process. I'm not wearing this for me, I'm wearing it for you.
So who's, Scott, are you going to go run through this, or Dr. C, we're going to go with, okay. It's all you.
Michelle, I'm just here for the ride.
That's right. This is the Scott Haas Show.
Quite. And after Jonathan's great presentation, I'm really excited to go over my budget with you.
Is that what you were doing out in the hallway? Oh, that's scratching.
The red pen, you're erasing.
Red pen, the whiteout.
I gave the shredder an extra workout out.
Tearing up some sheets.
So where would you like to start?
Well, so you're not, okay. Well, I mean, what we have here, just to sort of walk them through that, just so they know. I mean, starting on page 36, and you can jump in here on any of this, but this is sort of the base budget. There's administration, and these really are pretty flat. I mean, they're not,
No, yeah.
there's not a lot of increases here, and they followed the instructions, and so communications and the fire marshal.
So can we hold on for a second instead of speeding through this? So I sat in at the DSAC meeting that we discussed your budget. And what you showed us in your PowerPoint, is that what we're looking at here?
No.
Okay. This is the scaled down version.
Yes.
Okay.
So what you looked at was basically the enhancement side.
Okay.
In what we were requesting on the enhancements, this is just basically a flat line.
Okay.
There's very little where we need to increase on our normal budget, and most of it is just because of service contract increases and things along those lines. There's nothing that jumps out if you look at our baseline. The bulk of it was in the enhancement request.
Okay. But you talked about some important mandates that were coming out of the state in that budget process. They in here?
Well, yes and no. So when we hit the capital side, some
I
of
mean,
that.
if you plan on going over that, that's fine. I don't want to stop you, but I
There's
want to
some
get some
highlights.
clarification from what I heard 2 months ago to where we are today.
So if we could go over the baseline first.
Yeah.
Then I can give you some ideas on the enhancement side, and there's one project in the capital that's extremely critical to the department that I'd
Okay.
just like to hit on.
Fair enough, thank you.
We did, on page 40 in medical services, I would say we did include some promotions which they have requested in the enhancements, but we just put them in the base budget because those promotions are pretty much a given, and so they're not really very discretionary. So if you look at the salary, the regular line item on page 40.
What page are you on?
I'm on page 40.
Okay,
And-
so Commission President,
Yes.
particular departments within DES, at what point are we going to be able to talk about those individual departments like fire marshal and like animal
It's
control?
right in front of you.
That's now.
So that's now, right?
That's now.
Yes.
Okay.
Everything here is today.
Okay. all
Everything
right.
here's today.
So if I can take us back to Fire Marshal page 39. I know we have a state fire marshal's office based in Easton, and I know that our fire marshal representatives are down there doing plan reviews and consulting with them out of that office. Are we utilizing that state fire marshal's office in Easton as much as we could be, and then
We es-
save here?
We essentially don't use them at all. When we transitioned over to have a fire marshal's office, we pretty much took on the whole thing. The only thing that we don't do is the state fire marshal holds the rights to do the school inspections and the child care centers. And
So
then
we
we're-
don't do any plan review down in Easton?
No, we do it all ourselves here.
Okay. So we don't consult the state fire marshal's office at all, other than for,
If we've got a question on a rule or regulation, yes, we do consult with them, but other than that, no.
okay. All right, thank you.
We handle all of our own plan review in-house.
Okay.
Yeah. And how many counties would you say do it in-house? And, well, is it mostly really all the really rural counties rely on the state fire marshal?
Most of them do, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think one of the biggest reasons back when our fire marshal's office was created was the turnaround time is
Right.
why it was created, because
Right.
there's an extensive turnaround time with the state fire marshal's review compared to what we were doing locally. And I think that's basically what created our department, because they couldn't turn it around fast enough.
So we went that direction in hopes of turning over plans quicker.
Yes.
Okay. You got another one, Phil? That's it? Okay.
Well, okay, so not that I was singling fire marshal's office
that's all
out.
So we have, I mean, just, you know, page by page, 41 is special operations and 42 is support services. And then that's we have communications too. But then,
And to touch base real quick on the promotions that Jonathan was talking about. When our providers start as an emergency medical technician and they go through college, and it takes them about a 2-year process to get a paramedic certification. So what we do is promote them to a paramedic level when they receive that certification. If we don't, we're in a constant circle of, as soon as they get the paramedic certification, they're going to go somewhere where they can get a
Right.
paramedic job. And that's why we have a promotion process and a ladder for them to climb.
How long has that been in play?
Quite a few years now,
Oh, it is?
probably 8 or 9 years, just as a guess.
Okay.
It's been a while.
All righty.
so the next section, if you want to go, I mean, the next part of this is the enhancements, which starts on page 43. So, you want to talk about that? We can do that. And sort of if you go, the summary of all these enhancements, which is on page What page is that on?
46?
46 is capital
That's
budget.
capital.
I was looking for department-wide. Well, page 27. So basically, just in summary, there's conversion of 10 contractual to 4 full-time. There's an animal control supervisor.
All right, wait a minute, where are you, Jonathan?
Well, now I'm on page 27. 'Cause that's where-
27?
27 is where all the
Oh, you put all the enhancements in the front.
All the
Okay.
enhancements are listed there.
Okay,
It
that's
makes it a
fine.
little easier in some ways to kind of see them all together, so you can see all of what's in emergency services. And then there's the fire inspector, 3 dispatchers, and a quality assurance captain. So,
You know, I would like to see each department go back through and basically, on a scale of 1 to 10, and list what, you know, if there was only
Prioritize.
$100,000 we could squeeze out, where would you spend it? You know what I mean? I mean, prioritize it, and, you know, and it just, so that we know what we're looking at come October or November, if things do loosen up.
Oh, as far as the enhancement sections, you mean?
Yes, and him,
Okay,
yeah, as far as.
sure.
Scott's
yeah,
are
I mean,
all
I think that
ones.
would be, well, I understand, but I still think that, you know, I always like to hope that we'll have something there that we can move forward and not sit still and. Sure.
So if you want me to quickly go through them real quick, just to give you the highlights. So, and I wasn't supplied to page 27, so I don't see exactly what you're looking at.
that's just a summary.
See, and I thought we already did this. I thought we already took the 10 contractuals and made
We
them.
did that
did.
this year, too.
So last year, we did half of it. So last year, we eliminated 10 positions and hired 4 full-time. And then the plan was to do it again this year. And that would convert all of our part-time over to full-time.
Okay, but where were they gonna, it seems like we were staffed with, going back, we had part-timers and we were trying to fill Churchill and everything else, and I thought that was the plan, is that we take 10 part-timers, make them four full-timers, and now we had Churchill fully staffed and didn't have to worry about it. I mean, do we have, I guess I'm trying to figure out what the manpower issue is. Why do we need to convert 10 more to 4 more full-timers? Are we having vacations? We're trying to fill voids? Is it just the manpower issue? I mean, I'm just trying to understand, because we still have the same amount of houses and the same amount of ambulances.
Correct. So if you take our staffing level right now, we basically have a provider for every seat, for every shift. And when somebody takes off, we're heavily reliant on our part-time staffing. So what last year gave us was, I don't want to say a floater person, but it gave us a person on shift to fill the voids. So I constantly,
So if we were to do this, for instance, you'd have another individual that would be working a shift, and if somebody called out sick, vacation, whatever, they would fill that void, and if they didn't fill that void, they'd still be on the shift.
yes.
Okay.
And basically what we're doing is we're taking a supervisor unit out of service all the time to
fill
the
that-
voids. And what this will do is basically bring that supervisor back into play
Okay,
that we don't have
All right.
now.
I appreciate
The
that.
other problem that we have with part-time staffing is what we're living right now. Our part-time staffing have full-time jobs elsewhere. Most of them are
let
limited.
them
They're
go.
not allowed to work part-time because of the crisis that's going on.
Right.
Any crisis scenario that we're in, we can't rely on our part-time staffing because they're at their home departments doing their full-time jobs.
Okay.
So we're extremely handicapped when we're in an emergency and we need staffing. We've got to rely 100% on our own, what we have. And we basically have a body for every position, and we don't have any fluff in it.
Okay, right. I totally get it. I get it. Yeah. So I guess the question I have, Jonathan, for you is, the enhancement request was $276,431. That was for 4 positions. And in
Yes.
the county administrator's budget, we funded $110,000. So how does that work out to bodies? Is that 1.5?
You're also reducing the part-time, like you're eliminating the part-time line item also in that.
Oh, so we have a savings? No, because
it's also-
4 full-timers, oh, you mean
We also,
from what we're paying
half a
for
year,
10
right?
part-timers,
Half a year.
4 full, okay.
Yeah.
but it's only part of the year.
Part of the
Most
year.
of the way this is done is just, you don't hire them in July. You hire them later in the fiscal year.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at. I mean, when I'm looking at that line item for the 4 full-time with overtime and uniforms, it says it's going to cost us $276,431. But
Right.
you only funded 110, so my question is,
Right, you couldn't hire them until around March or April.
that's fine, but if you hired them in March or April, You mean of 21? So if we hired these 4 individuals, full-timers in March or April, it's going to cost us $110,000 in this budget, but in the next budget, it's going to cost us $276,000.
Right,
Okay.
that's right.
So just.
That's right.
It's the way we shuffle those numbers sometimes, it gets a little confusing.
Budget theory 101.
Right, okay. That's fine. Because when you look at it, you go, well, that doesn't make sense. How are we getting 4 people for
You
110?
make a good point. It always
So you should have another column there maybe that says,
full year cost.
Stated of the next year.
Yeah, just defining that that's, coming on board in April, Thank you.
Well,
I guess that's the
All right.
same thing with the animal control supervisor. That's not
All-
coming
All
on.
those, all those are
That's like-
partially funded.
yeah.
It's partially funded.
it was
for
the only
next
way
year.
to
It's the only way to do
sort of
it.
get.
Okay,
stuff in.
okay.
All right, so next on the list, our communications division, and what our real need is 3 full-time dispatch positions in this, which would build an extra person on each shift. There
The
was a-
same situation.
Yeah, the study, there was a study done this last year that evaluated staffing levels of all dispatch centers across the state of Maryland, which was part of the Next Gen 911 group, which Jonathan sits on that group. The recommendation for our center came back at 7 personnel per shift. We're at 5 right now. We are trying to up that to 6. The semi-good news with that, which Jonathan may disagree a little bit on, but the 911 fee put on the phones increases our revenue for this upcoming year about $300,000, and we're allowed to use that revenue towards salaries. So our push for this was, with that revenue increase, is to hire the positions that we need in the dispatch room.
Okay.
The animal control supervisor, right now, we inherited the animal control division into our department about 3 years ago. It's been, I think, for them and for us, a relatively good fit. We've gone a long way with them. They're a good division, but we have no field supervision whatsoever out there. And we're trying just to promote one person as a supervisor level in that division.
So that'll be an increase in salary for someone who already exists to become
Yes.
supervisor?
Yes.
Okay.
The next thing is in there, which is not a mandate for us to have, but we were trying to promote one of the supervisors into a quality assurance, which we listed as a quality assurance captain position. Right now, we don't have, which is a state mandate for us to have a quality assurance program. We don't have a really good defined one. And it's very difficult to do. It's spread over 4 different shifts and having multiple people trying to take care of it. We were trying to have one single person in charge of our total quality assurance for the division.
That's a state mandate?
It's a state mandate for us to have quality assurance program within a department, which we meet the mandate.
So who's
but we
doing it right
struggle.
now?
It's done between
By
multiple
shift
shifts.
supervisors?
We have one shift supervisor that's primarily responsible for it. But basically, what we try to do, which is part of the program, is to review a large number of the calls that they're receiving. So it basically constantly pulls the supervisor off the floor, out of the room, and into a room listening to recordings all day. It's a fun job.
This is something, all the other rural counties have to do this, and
All the other rural counties have a little bit different way of how they handle it, do it. Everybody does it a little bit different way.
I mean, I feel
And
like
again,
you-
we are meeting the mandate right now with having one of the shift lieutenants assigned to do it.
Yeah.
But that's all they do. They don't manage the shift. They're managing the quality assurance program.
So just for general knowledge purposes, that the what are you calling it again? Compliance?
quality assurance.
Quality assurance. So, and this is obviously a state mandate that you submit to the state certain reports after shifts end.
We have an annual audit every year, and they come in and review everything that we've done throughout the year.
Okay. And so what is actually being logged to be in compliance? Like the number of calls, how it was treated, how long? I mean, all that information that basically just happens in a single shift gets compiled into report, and then you guys have to provide that to the state. Is
Yes.
that for funding reasons, or?
Yes, and that's how we get the 911 funding.
Okay. Okay.
So it's very important for us to stay compliant to continue to receive the 911 funding.
I'd agree
And
with you.
again, we are compliant with what we're doing. The problem is, we don't have a supervisor on the floor while they're doing it. And it
Because that
creates a
person is
problem.
just
So-
in another room doing it.
Yeah.
With that being said, you know, we try to do this with the Board of Ed and other departments. What do you see coming in 21, 22, 23, when it comes to state mandates, state, you know, we need this, we should have that? Is there some kind of forecast you could give us, saying, you know, okay, well, you know, if we got this year, here's what else we still need to do? I mean, I think that it helps us get a better picture of what we're looking at down the road. And I'm not telling you right now, but if there's something we could, you know, maybe get in an email or something, so we start looking forward for projections.
And start
you know.
budgeting for it.
Right,
This
absolutely.
is some big new mandate that's. gonna
Exactly, you know.
alter-
So the good news with this is everything that we're mandated to do is basically heavily funded with the new 911 fees that they're doing. And I'm going to kind of hit that when we hit a little later into this, when we hit the capital side. But there's two sides of this. So we go to the state and we ask for funding through the state 911 board. And we've got a project coming to you next week that is a $1 million project for our phone system that the state's paying for through the 911 fees. So a lot of the things that we have to pay for this year out of our own operating budget, we don't have to pay for next year out of our operating budget. The problem that I have is we don't have exact numbers of what that is at this moment, and we probably won't have what that exactly is when the budget is struck. And we're learning it as we go because it just got implemented. So all we have right now is projections on what they feel that we're going to receive because of the increase from what they've seen on the first quarter. And we have a list of what we project that they're going to fund for this upcoming year. But most of our service contracts and maintenance agreements that we have with our phone system and connected to the 911 services is going to be paid for 100% by the state, which was about $100,000 to $150,000 number in our budget this last year.
I remember.
Very good.
So the issue that we focused on, and that Scott and I talked about when we had our meetings, was really the same thing you were saying, which is, I mean, the big thing that's out there to me anyway, because I sat on this committee, was Next Gen 911. So my question was, okay, well, if we do these 3 now, are we going to need to do another 3 next year or 2 years or whatever? Just because Next Gen is sort of the future. Now, you may say it's sort of partly already there, but that was sort of my question was, I didn't want to say, well, we're going to add 3 here, but then next year we're just going to have to add 3 more because that's what's going to be required. And I don't know if you can say that, but.
Well, the difficult part that I have to answer that question is I don't project needing additional staff after this request for at least 2 to 3 years. But what's going to come into play over these 2 to 3 years is video calling. And I don't have an answer on how much that's going to tie the staff up when we start doing video calling. But that's, I think, an unanswered question across the United States right now is what that is going to do. But that's kind of a game changer when they start doing video calls. Right now, we're doing everything next gen that's available next generation. We're doing it at our 911 center now. The only thing that we're not part of next generation, which we're in a process with the 9 jurisdictions on the Eastern Shore, is converting our system over to be next generation compatible, which is basically going from a copper-based phone system to an IP-based phone system.
So Scott, when you talk about staffing as it moves forward, the task force, and my understanding when it was all debated and everything else, was that the costs were going to be progressive to the needs, to where the counties were not going to absorb any additional operating costs for the Next Gen 911, whether it was the video, the calling, and all that stuff. Is that still
That's
in
still
play?
into play, yes.
Okay, all right.
And an option, long-term option, is they increased, and I don't have all this embedded in the memory, so the increase on the phone system for this upcoming year is $1.25. And 75 cents of that $1.25 goes to the county and 50 cents goes to the state. And we're allowed to bid on state projects off of that 50-cent side. The difference is from this year to what they're currently doing is last year's numbers were based off of if you had 5 phones on your home plan, it was only a single phone. Now it's all 5 phones that are getting the bill.
Right, which is a nice boost in.
So the leverage or the wiggle room that they gave the counties, if it's not enough to cover it, is the counties have the obligation after the first year of evaluation of this is to increase the fee of the 911 phone fee.
Locally, right?
Locally, which is something that
I wouldn't
is an
say
option.
obligation, I would say authorization.
Well,
The ability to.
I think
The
you
ability
If
to.
you see that it's not at 100%, then the counties can go in and raise another 70.
Well, I think it's got to operate like an enterprise fund. I think it's got to be self-supporting at this point. I mean,
That's
it's,
what the
if this is going to be one of those state mandates that they put in and then they never stay on top of ways to make sure it gets paid for the long run, then the counties are once again going to suffer just like highway user revenues and all the other ones that they've dropped in our lap. So it's got to be, we've got to have the ability here locally to make sure that that is a break even at the very least.
So I'm confident that what they have planned and what they have done this year through legislation, that it is going to cover that. But you also have to keep in mind that it's not meant for anything that's not part of the phone system. So
Right, no, I
it
get
won't
it.
pay for a CAD system, it won't pay for a radio system. So there's a lot of extra
But
expenses
the
in
operational
there.
side, that's the biggest concern. Once you put in the equipment and it's all fiber backbone, we know that's going to last for many, many years, but it's the operational side that's going to change. Like you said, the dynamics of it will change and the needs will change. And that's where we don't want to get stuck for the next 30 years maintaining it out of our, on the taxpayer here locals time. It's basically a usage tax at that point. If you're using your phone and then, and you're calling 911, then you're paying for it. So that's,
Scott, did the state make a commitment to a vendor for this? Are they still undecisive?
No, the state has made no commitment to any vendor for next generation 911. It's up to local jurisdictions. So what
okay.
we have done as a local jurisdiction is combined forces with the 9 jurisdictions of the Eastern Shore. So we have an RFP out on the street for next generation 911 that the 9 jurisdictions are supporting. We're the primary on it, so everything is getting funneled through Queen Anne's County. Jeff Rank is the chief financial officer on the project and overseeing the financial side for us. But we're at the beginning stages. We just posted the RFP, but we're at the beginning stages. But it's basically down to 2 or 3 vendors that are currently able to supply. It's Motorola, AT&T, and there's another one I can't think of the name off the top of my head.
Okay. Just curious if someone had made a commitment yet.
All right,
So,
moving on.
can we go, so the capital is on page 46. And what you see there is their request and then the proposed. So there was some reductions made to get to really just balance the county administrator's budget. And so,
So there's some changes that I would like to do to this, and I can hit each one of these projects.
real quick, Skip, before you go ahead. So then, but you made additional changes from the 51 to the 41. Are any of those in the DES budget that we're not seeing here?
no, these are part of getting from the 51 to the 41.
Okay, so these are updated to match the 41.
They match the 41. The only caveat I would say is that in order to get from the 149 down, there's another 1.2, not from him, but.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
In total.
It's- For each department, let us know if there's additional that we're not looking at. Sorry,
That,
Scott.
we don't, that is not on here. That I'll have to give you next week.
But you said DES has none, so we're good. He can move on.
And to Jack's response there, also, I'd like to separate it out, because we keep saying 41, but that includes SKI, and includes a bunch of others. I mean, I think it should be cut down to the ones that pertain to our departments.
Yeah, you're right. That's not, the number's not that big. It's more
Right.
like 30 or something.
Yeah.
It's not, sanitary and ski,
Correct.
right?
That's what I mean,
So you want to see that number. You can get.
Yeah, I mean, I would pull those out, so, I mean, we're talking to public things, $41 million.
Right.
Where's
Yeah.
all that going? So they don't understand that
Right,
You know,
right.
so,
That does look like a big number.
right.
We can do that.
If, yeah, you can look at the total.
So, and while we're talking about how your organizationals, I'd like to see it where the enhancements are with each group and a total and a dollar amount, versus like going back to page 27, and you've
Yeah.
got all these departments together, then you total it. I'd like to total it by departments. And I know you probably do, but since you got a binder with tabs for each one of these departments, you might as well put their enhancements like you do have, and just put a cost associated with it on a tally sheet.
Put the roll-up sheet behind the description.
Okay, so you see, you're right, you want to see the total for each department.
Right, because I mean, just like with DES, we have the enhancements there and an explanation of each one, and the last page could just
Right.
be a line item and a dollar amount, so that when we start going, I can only give you this, we can
have
all
something
find
to
it.
work from.
Right, we can all find it right then and there, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that, Scott. I didn't mean
No,
to
no
go off on a
problem, no
tangent.
problem.
You're the first up, so we're looking and going.
Like I said, I was really excited to come in after Jonathan's presentation.
I told him to have candy up here, but
Sure.
Yeah, is that all you had as far as the budget?
Well,
questions we had
Well, the
for
capital,
Scott?
he said he had
If
stuff on
we
the
go
capital.
through the capital, there's a proposal that we have for transport units. So if you take the ambulance line item, hopefully after you vote on a project that we have, you can delete that one off of this. The 18,000 for the enclosed trailer, you can delete that out of this.
Which one?
Ooh, back
Enclosed
up.
trailer?
Yes.
So those
The
two,
enclosed trailer.
and the ambulance right above it.
So the project radio tower inspection repair can be deleted. We found funds within our current capital budget.
radio, the
Cover that?
187,000, or,
147.
The 147 that was reduced
Okay.
down to 87, that whole thing can get deleted out.
okay,
And what I'd like to ask to be put back in is the one replacement vehicle for the 50,854, if possible.
well, again, so that would be, when you revise this, revise what he's asking, and again, prioritize it.
Okay.
I mean, I just think that's easier for all of us, instead of us going and thinking what we feel would be best. I think it should come from you. So these cardiac CAD replacements, $1.5 million? What is that?
That's the CAD.
That's the CAD
That's the radio
replacement. So that's our
system.
computer-aided
Or the computer.
dispatch
Oh, okay.
system
They
within
were
our building. and that's-
Computer-aided
Cardiac, I'm going, man, what
That-
kind of
that is
fancy things are we
our-
putting in our buses now?
They were
That
those,
is-
they were those aged out things that were in. Yeah.
So our current system is 20 years old, a little over 20 years. It's been sold about 4 times in the last 12 months to 18 months. The current contractor who owns it is basically giving us nudges, saying that they're not going to support it any longer and they want us to convert to something else. So in our current budget cycle right now, we've got a line item that covers a consultant to oversee our RFP process. We've got an RFP out on the street right now. We're just waiting for the bids to come back in and do the final evaluation. Right now, it's not looking like it's going to be 1.5 to replace it, but that's our top priority is replacing the system because it's on its last leg and we desperately need
And it's
the
going to have to be
changes.
part of the next gen 911. You're going to have all that stuff at the same level. So
Yep.
there's no doubt. That's a no-brainer on this one.
All right, so the last thing I've got is the transport units, if you want to.
Yeah, Commissioners, we have a couple of things on your desk. We talked about those briefly. As part of the CARES Act, we submitted our coronavirus relief fund plan last Friday, May 1st. We have 2 parts of that. Part of that is been distributed to the Health Department, and that is on a reimbursable basis. And we have 2 items here for your consideration tonight, the first of which is the purchase of 2 ambulance-style testing units for COVID-19 testing and hopefully vaccination in the near future. And there's an item there on your desk for that. I mean, Scott and Dr. Ciatola is here tonight as well if you have any questions about that, but that is part of our plan going forward. So we can take action on that tonight if you're
So how would
ready
the
to
mobile
do so.
testing work?
Well, what we've done, as you know, we set up the alternate testing site at Chesapeake College for 5 jurisdictions. What I envision in coming as this pandemic continues, and there's no indication that this is really going to subside over the next 12 to probably 18 months, is to get to our more vulnerable population that does not have the transportation means, and also our Hispanic and Haitian Creole population in North County. And what these transport units, which will be essentially our EMS transport units, use those, convert those essentially to mobile testing units, and we can go to those communities, go ahead and do the COVID-19 testing in those units. And when we have completed essentially the testing requirement to try and test as many of our population as we can, is that those units will then be able to be converted back to an EMS transport unit. And these units need to be fully equipped because, unfortunately, with the COVID-19, when these patients are having a respiratory issue, they suddenly become extremely hypoxic. And that's why I feel that we need the ALS equipment and the ability to render care in that urgent situation at these testing sites. That's what we've done at Chesapeake College. That's what I plan to then transition these into mobile testing units with both a health department nurse, staff, and an ALS paramedic from DES. As the vaccine becomes available, what we will be able to do is multiple pod type orientation to do multi-vaccinations in rural areas in our vulnerable populations, both in the community centers, the schools, and everything else. And that these units will give us that ability. I mean, essentially, as the health department received these federal funds that were then granted to the state, I'm using the 4.4 million that came into the health department for specifically health-related costs to COVID to be able to plan ahead, be innovative, be creative, and go ahead and be prepared for what we're going to need as we go down the road. And that's why I'm asking that we get this approved through our procurement process with the county, and that's why I'm asking for your approval tonight, because I really want to get this order in and utilize this money now. The second piece of this is the WIC vehicle that we innovatively put together from the state with Tech Ops. I want to do another one of those vans so that we can use this for community outreach as we go forward, again for our vulnerable populations, for diabetic cholesterol control, and use that in conjunction with our community wellness program for the health department. That vehicle will be a state-titled vehicle. The two transport units that will be essentially used initially as testing, mobile testing units, will be titled and tagged through the county. So that's where we stand.
But we've got, so there's, that's
I move
two,
to,
it's
You
two
got
different
two.
ones.
You got two
There's
different.
two.
I move to piggyback off the Houston Galveston Area Council buy program and authorize the Director of Department of Emergency Services to execute a contract with Atlantic Emergency Solutions for $557,940 to purchase 2 ambulances through the CARES Act.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. So let me explain to the public that isn't following along with what's going on with this COVID-19 and the federal government's funding down to the states and the states down to the counties. We Queen Anne's counties, our health department, led by Dr. Ciatola, is getting the first half of the installment of $4.4 million?
4.4.
$4.4 million to be used specifically to COVID-related issues, be it PPE, be it what we are just now getting ready to vote on, supplies, anything that can help with this pandemic and future issues. And that's the first half, and the second half is something the county's working on to get help with what COVID has done to the county and to some of our businesses, and we're going to hold off on really talking about that till we get some answers back from the state. But this first portion is been approved. We've sent that application in and your documentation in.
We're drawing on that money now, already paying down
Excellent.
the $400,000 that we spent for PPE, hand sanitizer, gowns, mask, COVID-related expenses across the county.
So that's where the money's not coming out of the general fund. It's not coming from the taxpayers of Queen Anne's County per se. So this is something that the federal government and the state are doing to help us relieve some of the pressure off of our emergency services and all of our supplies that were in the county.
And it's also based on, when we met 2 weeks ago, is it's going to plan for the future. So
Right.
Dr. C's plan is to order PPE and things like that for the future that will be able to be distributed to businesses to help them offset some of them costs, correct? That's something we had
Correct.
talked about before, because some of these businesses aren't going to be able to afford plexiglass shields or whatever they may need to get back open. So some of this money can be used for PPE equipment like that to even help the businesses out, so.
Did you want to say anything, Steve? Okay.
I'll just say, in addition to that, it does cover costs that we've incurred countywide from other agencies, Public Works, Department of Emergency Services, and others from beginning from March the 1st of this year. So it's money that's going to be recoverable, and we're collecting invoices now to submit those for.
And before
recapture.
anybody sends any of us an email or a phone call, I already tried to see if we could use it to backfill revenue losses, and it's a no-no. So we can't use it for that. We can only use it to help us cover the expenses directly related to COVID and help us in the future with COVID-related issues. And this money has to be spent by December 31st?
December 31st of this year.
Yes.
December 31st. So these two units that Dr. Ciatola is recommending and that we're voting on now, as you heard, we'll be able to use those in the county for emergency services issues also. So it's a huge win for the county. So we have a motion to piggyback off the Houston-Galveston Area Council Buy Program and authorize the Director of the Department of Emergency Service to execute a contract with Atlantic Emergency Solutions for $557,940 to purchase 2 ambulances through the CARES Act. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved. Thank you. Got another one.
Well,
So we don't have a motion
I don't
for
think we
that.
have to have a motion on this, Dr. C, because this
No,
is
I
through the
just need,
state.
I just need to inform you of it and get your approval. We don't have to have a motion to procure it because of the fact it's coming through the state. It's going to be a health department vehicle.
Excellent.
So you're just letting us know it's going to
Yes,
happen, that we're not going to
exactly.
go through the state process.
Just like we did with the WIC vehicle, the WIC van, the mobile van
Right.
that we did for women and children through Tech Ops, and we're just going to get this going and get the purchase in and get it rolling.
Excellent.
It's an FYI for $144,000.
I got you. Well, at least it's a local contractor, local
Yes.
businesses.
I do appreciate
that
you
doing
using
the
tech
work
options.
there.
Yeah, that's great.
Those are good folks down there. So we don't have to make up a motion then.
No, we're good. You got anything else, Scott? Any-
Shit up.
Don't have any other questions? That's it.
Well, I just, once again, thank you, Dr. Ciatola. Thank you, Scott. You guys, you're doing a great job. I will say, in 6.5 years of being a commissioner, I've never received a phone call about one thing negative from our emergency services, ever. That says a lot, because, a lot of people will, like to pick up that phone and be able to reach somebody, and I just think, we've got a great team here, and kudos to you guys, and thank you for what you do for the county.
I think our entire system is great, and the comment you just made is 100% our staff.
Right.
They're the ones out doing
Well,
the
and I
job
think-
every single day, and
I think part of it too, Scott, is that the way that you guys anticipate mandates, anticipate the necessity of programs, I think we're always kind of a couple steps ahead of other jurisdictions because we're thinking,
We'll do it next.
60, 90, 180 day. We're way out in front of a lot of other jurisdictions when it comes to decision-making to be ready.
I've got a very
think that has a lot
progressive
to do
medical director, and it's your support that makes that happen, so.
And
we
I
appreciate your
love it
support.
when our medical director's signing his name with our name, so that's always a beautiful thing. So thank you.
Well, now that you mentioned that, Commissioner Moran, we
Let's
do
go ahead
have
and vote on that one while we're there.
While
Good segue.
Dr. Ciatola and Scott are still here, we do have a letter that we drafted to Governor Hogan today to hopefully provide an opportunity or some recommendations to reopen Maryland and reopen Queen Anne's County and reopen businesses and things on a targeted basis. And we did draft that with the intent of getting the board's signature along with Dr. Ciatola's signature. We did some tours around the county and looked at businesses that are prepared to open. They are ready to go. They're COVID-19 friendly. And we think that this is a prudent approach to try to get Maryland back in business. So,
As Commissioners, I've made 2 visits, one to Reed Construction up in Barclay, and I was extremely impressed upon the measures that business has taken to protect their employees and to still continue functioning. Last week, I did a tour of Paul Reed Smith's facility down on the island and went through the business and essentially discussed with them what they were doing to make preparations in order to meet the standards that will be required to open back up. And I would strongly recommend with this letter to the governor that Paul Reed Smith, with what they are doing with their shifts, with their distancing of their employees, with their policies, strongly recommend that we start a gradual opening of Queen Anne County again and allow these businesses to get back together. You're talking about 375 very qualified, experienced personnel that their life depends on whether that facility can reopen and go back into production. And I would
And I did-
strongly recommend signing that letter with
They're
you.
truly a model for how it should be done.
But I just want to add,
Question.
we're specifically in our letter addressing PRS and Reed Millwork and what they've done, but this is much broader than that in the letter. The gist of the letter is that businesses will be looked at by the health department to see if they meet COVID-19. If they do, they'll get the green light as well. Even though we're calling out 2 businesses in here, I just want to let the public know this is really a general statement about all
The
businesses.
general statement about what we have in Queen Anne County, and if we do a specific rollout, a planned rollout, a progressive rollout of these businesses and say, these are the components that need to be in place to protect your employees as well as the public. And if they agree to those processes and policies and procedures, then yes, let's start moving forward.
Do those procedures that you referenced, do they include annual inspections to make sure that they're adhering?
Well, it certainly will be to a point where they will have to comply, and we could do spot inspections. I mean, I went to
Okay.
read,
Okay.
So does this expose the
Can't even
county
get it undone.
and the medical department to having to inspect every business in the county? What door are you opening?
Well, I don't think it should. I don't think it should. I don't think we should have to inspect anybody. I think that should be complaint driven. I think that just like our code enforcement does, I think it would be the same thing for this. I mean, Dr. C goes through and he checks these businesses and what they're doing is great. Now, if they decide after he walks out the door, they're going to do something different,
I guess that was
it's
my
going to be on the honor system.
Right, but.
You're talking about-
But I think you're talking about the initial opening.
My question is to
He
the.
is not code enforcement.
no. And it's just like we do with environmental health, with looking at septic systems, looking at drain fields, the restaurants, making sure that they're in compliance with the health regulations, and same thing with pools. I mean, we have a set of rules
Right.
that are on the table. We lay out the set of rules, what's needed for social distancing, protection, masking, face coverings, and things like that, and protecting of both the employees and the public. I mean, this is going to be I'm not going to go out and inspect everybody and give them a seal of approval. No way. I don't have the time.
Right.
We don't have the capability. And personally, I'm not taking the liability.
Right.
Okay?
That's
But
exactly
I'm
right.
recommending that this is what we need to start progressively opening our county.
So to make it a little bit more generalized, and I think to kind of what Stevie was asking is, to get these businesses open, there's going to be a set of procedures that are going to be given out. We're going to get them out through the Economic Development Department, the Chamber of Commerce, all the avenues to businesses. They will decide after reading them, can I comply with this, can I not comply? And then they will comply, and if someone, like Jim said, is going to be complaint driven, somebody walks in there and they know that you're supposed to have shields in front of the registers, not shields, it's going to be complaint driven, then it would be handled pretty much like everything else, so.
You'll be
I
closed
think
down
it's-
until you can
it's-
make complaints.
And look, and I feel confident Queen Anne's County, we have great businesses here, they're going to do what they need to do to get open and
No,
move
I-
forward.
But just to be clear, I don't want the public getting the wrong idea. This letter is specific to certain events in certain businesses. So I don't want, unless the governor comes out and says, yes, we're going to remove X, Y, and Z, and we're going to open A, B, and C. So, I just think that, this is the first step, and it's a big step, and I appreciate Dr. Ciatola signing
But I'm
on
saying
with
that
this.
our general overtone in there is that we need to, if businesses can become compliant, we need to get them open. And that's the gist of, to me, reading that letter, that's what I'm going to get out of it, is we're looking, yes, these are 2 specifics that we've looked at, we've checked out.
Right.
We say, Dr. C's giving them his blessing, we're giving them our blessing to get these open. But overall, we're saying we need to move as quickly forward as we can
Absolutely.
with businesses.
Yes.
And the process will be this, and we agree with that process.
There you go.
And keep in mind too, Commissioners, this is a recommendation, suggestion to the governor for his plan. It is all subject to the governor's approval.
Correct.
We think this is something we're ready to take on at some point very, very soon to allow for these businesses to reopen COVID-friendly and also to reinstitute and reintroduce other recreational activities that we feel are safe, like golfing and family boating as well. So.
Okay. So you get a motion to sign the letter?
I make a motion that we sign the letter to the governor.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Jonathan.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Next up, we have Department of Public Works, I think.
Thank you.
We sync it to my schedule.
Believe me.
Them last departments aren't.
Oh, no, we're gonna wrap this thing up now. Let's go.
You know what the funny thing
Send
is?
them DPW guys in here.
All right, thanks, Dr. Ciatola. Thanks, Scott.
See you guys.
These cards are in there.
Hey, Jim, lucky for you, I didn't have any questions under the DPW tab.
You what?
I didn't have any questions under DPW.
Oh, there you go. There he is.
It'll only take 5 minutes.
The man with the plan. Oh, and
I
another.
think the only questions I had was.
I know there's one more out there. There he is.
Leave it at DPW guys to exceed the limits.
Edgar.
Look at them.
Lee Edgar.
Breaking
Sounds
all
like
the
an
rules.
author's name.
Here we go. Roll.
So we're going to, kind of same format for Public Works, which is, we have the base budget by division. So I'm just going to sort of walk through those pages quickly. And you can stop me, or Alan can talk about those. And then we have the enhancements, and then we have the capital budget. So
All right, I'm gonna stop you.
It's animal services. I already got that.
No, I'm looking at your visualization.
what's that?
You got your multicolored graph here, but you don't have it labeled what color is what. What was the purpose of that?
That's our software system. We don't sort of ignore those.
Okay, all right.
I don't pay any attention to
Pretend that's not there.
It's not there. Okay,
Look more towards the lower part of the sheet.
that's all. Sorry.
Okay, so, starting page 48, Animal Services is, of course, there for the first time in FY '21.
Yeah, that was a surprise.
Well, although actually, I take that back. We did have, I mean, there was a budget amendment for FY '20, but it's not here in the system. So there is a FY '20 piece, which you'll remember, we started in March, is when we took that over. And then,
Yeah, March.
this is FY '21. I would say to you that I think we're still kind of figuring out exactly what it's going to cost. So this is,
A moving number?
yeah, probably. So we'll have to see what they're actually spending. There are 13 positions that are there, and that's what this covers. So,
John, one thing I would like to see you do, because it just appears horribly on that front, is somehow, whether it's noted or otherwise, the 500 and some thousand that was going to AWL should be shown, because in the beginning, this shows 100%, $750,000 increase. I'd like to have a note out there that says this was here's the difference, which is the actual increase.
248,000.
Yeah.
yeah, we can sort of put it as a note. There is an actual decrease in the budget, but you won't see it. It's in non-departmental.
I saw it, it's 500, that's where I got it from, it's
Yeah, right,
539,000, but I'd rather you
But
just
you could
leave
put it
that
as
as a
a note
line
here.
item and, yeah, let Alan deal with it later.
Okay. Okay.
But that's all, see, just a note there.
Okay.
Okay, then DPW administration is next.
Well, one reason that went down was because we moved a position into property management, which is a new division we created.
So if you look at the salaries and wages, it goes down by almost 100,000, but you'll see it increase somewhere else. Where we'll show that in property management. So engineering is next, and engineering, we did add positions in FY20 for part of the year, so you do see an increase in FY21, but that's really because we added positions in FY20.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But they were not full year funded, so, but that's where you see that
That's-
increase in the following year.
The shell game.
Well, sort of. Okay, general services is next. And then you have property management.
Property management also includes weed control now, which was a position transferred from Parks and Rec.
So you got that now?
Yeah, it just, everything keeps rolling my way.
You're like a big magnet, you know?
Yeah.
I thought you
He's looking at
negotiated.
Todd going, I didn't sign up under these
I don't know why you don't
circumstances."
negotiate with DES and say, look, you know, they've got animal control. They might as well have animal welfare.
I didn't know I had animal services till Thursday, so.
You didn't move his desk down into that building, did you?
No, not yet.
It's going to aging next year.
Hey, Stevie, you know how to get to DPW, don't you?
Okay, next is roads on page 53. And this is all pretty flat. If you look at the total, page 54, it's basically a flat budget. Sanitary is next. That's not general fund, but we show it here. And obviously, this doesn't have any general fund impact, but it's pretty flat also. Then we have solid waste on page 57.
We still got, you know, that solid waste, if we were opening up Graysonville for one day a week, additional. I mean, I know I got the song and dance. I got the Potomac two-step when I got that email, and it's like, I asked for one day and it came out to like $3 million, and the whole budget's not $3 million, and I'm like, what is this? So, you know, I mean, I get that we don't think it might not be necessary, but it sure would be nice to have an actual number, what it would cost to open one additional day at the two busiest ones.
Which is Graysonville and Bats Neck?
You didn't get those costs? They got just one day at Bats Neck and one day at Graysonville.
Additional?
One additional day. I thought they had those numbers broken down for you. We can get them.
Oh, no, I got some emails, but the numbers were astronomical, and it just wasn't adding up.
I don't think the numbers were one day at each, I don't recall.
I got
think it was a little bit more than that.
Busy.
but
It was more than that, I think.
We'll get to-
We can
we'll
look
get
at
back
that.
to it.
Over Bats Neck?
Centerville's probably the busiest, yeah, without a doubt.
Well, that's what I'm saying, you know, I know Graysonville, I see that line always turning in there, so, you know.
Because Centerville pulls North County because it's only open on, it's Thursday, Saturday, and most people are going to go one of those 2 days, but Centerville's open.
And I'm not saying we do it now, but it would be nice to know what that number is, so like in October or November or next year, as you like to say, we'll put it in April.
just say you
So
wanna
it's
put it
only
towards the end of the budget,
$50,000, and, you
right?
know, we'll be good and covered, so.
Snap, it's
Yeah.
a breeze, right?
But I definitely would like to see that, you know, if we could do that.
Yeah, I think Shane just mentioned he thinks it was for 3 days at each of the sites.
3 days?
3 days.
A lot more than
Yeah.
Additional three?
Additionals,
No,
yeah.
I just wanted one more day.
3 days total at each site, basically.
He's saying that's probably the cost you saw was for 3 days, though.
That's what it was, yeah.
In other words, open all.
It wasn't
all
what
sites
you
all
asked
week.
for, but that's what it was.
That's 6 days then at that point.
We can break it down
All
on a
sites.
per day basis, and then you can just.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
all right.
So
get there.
3 days at every site.
Okay. Very good.
And one other issue on solid waste, we are proposing to raise the ticket books $5 this fiscal year.
So what are they
From
now?
what to what?
What are they
50
now?
to 55.
They're
50 to
55 now?
55?
And then we will propose to raise them another $5 next year if you want to 60, and then we will be pretty much covering their tipping fees, which had always been the goal.
We talked about this last year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then we had to go up to, because we were losing, what,
Right.
almost 300,000 a year, something like that? It's a pretty hefty number.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. The enhancements
People bitching about
for Public Works are in engineering and in general services. Talk about
Well, we heard Jonathan's preamble, so we'll just assume that the positions are eliminated, and we'll live with that for now.
For now, that's right.
Capital budget.
Not forever.
The justifications and general services, 2 of them aren't really justifications, they're stuff we have to do anyway. We just want to track them separately so we can have a better idea of the cost. That's being the life safety compliance, being like sprinkler systems, elevators, things like that we have to do regardless. We're already paying for it. We just want to track it separately. We've also been enhancing security systems in all the buildings, which obviously there's a capital cost, but there's also an O&M cost to keep the stuff running, so we'd like to be able to track that. The only true enhancement is beautification, because we've gotten complaints about some of our larger or more prominent buildings, the landscaping not being upkept.
Got to agree with you 100% on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, when the wife says, boy, that building looks like,
Yep. Absolutely. Okay.
And those, I would say, I mean, this E2 and E3 are $5,000 each.
Excuse me?
So they're $5,000 each, so they're sort of,
And they're money we're
There's
spending
not
now. They're not
really-
even an enhancement, it's just that we want to track it separately. That's all.
yeah. There's not really a decision to make there. Okay, so, page 60 and 61 are as the capital budget, and, you see here where, I mean, so the reductions in red are kind of what we said was getting from the 51 to the 41. And, I maybe just focus on a couple of them here. I mean, we did have money in here for the Seebeck sewer extension, which was taken out in this version, the 300,000. What else? Well, you know, the asphalt overlays. Where's Shane? He just never asked for the right amount of money. So his 2.1 million was requested, which we reduced to 1.7 million. Now, I will say the Kent Narrows public parking was in for $1.3 million. We took that out. So that's
What would, explain that part.
Where's that at?
Narrows
in the
public.
middle under the roads board.
Excuse
where
me?
You see Kent Narrows public parking, there's $1.3 million.
But what was that for?
It's for parking garage at the Kent Narrows.
Okay.
We talked about that. Just-
All right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let me ask before we go on, what, are you chopping some of your overlays down this year?
Yes.
By how many, I mean, normally we do how much a year? How many miles?
This year, we were proposing 40 miles of tar and chip, 14 miles of slurry seal, and about 5 miles of paving.
As versus what
Up here,
we ought to
Shane.
keep up every year? So what should we be doing every year?
That's approximately what we should be doing every year to keep on par. But we've had a very robust couple of years,
I
so,
understand.
yeah. And not included in that is the Chesapeake Bay Business Park, which that would be a state aid project, so that's an 80-20 split.
That's the slurry, right?
That's paving. That's one of our larger projects. That's about
Oh, yeah.
that's about an $800,000
Yeah.
project to do that.
So the tar and chip, you're completely up to speed and keeping up?
Yeah, this particular, in current year we're in right now, FY20, we did not slurry seal or tar and chip. We used the money to pave. We used the money for hot mix asphalt. So we are a little behind with slurry seal and tar and chip because we defer. We asked for 2 point something and we got 1.8. So we decided to focus that money on asphalt because the previous years we had used our money for tar and chip and slurry seal and weren't able to actually pave for about a year or two. So we wanted to get back to paving.
I missed the numbers at the beginning. What are those, can you give those average miles per year of each one that you need to kind of stay on par throughout the county? Not just what you're doing this year, but average each year, what is it? How many miles of tar and chip, did you say?
Tar and chip, we range from 40 to 60 miles of tar and chip, about 12 to 14 miles of slurry seal, and then anywhere from 3 to maybe 7 miles of paving, depending on the size of the project.
Okay.
So some roads need reclamation, patching, which increases the cost, so we can't pave as much. But the road's in worse condition, so we have to do a lot more base work. So that's typically the mileage we try to do every year.
Am I correct in thinking we have 500 miles of tar and chip?
Approximately. Yeah, we have 562 miles of roadway.
No, I understand.
Yeah, the majority is tar and chip.
Yeah, so the tar and chip, let's say 500 miles, the last 5 years, wouldn't we need to be doing 100 miles a year?
Well, we slurry seal on top of the tar and chip.
Okay.
So that adds to the life of it as well.
Okay.
So that's why sometimes we're up to 60 miles per year. And actually, the average is about 7 years. Between 5 and 7, we can get a tar and chip.
Because we slurry seal over this tar and chip, we get 2 more years out of it.
If a slurry seal in the proper place could last up to 10 years, if you do it in, say, a residential neighborhood. Roads like Greenville Road, for instance, we tar and chip that about every 3 years now.
Right.
Because the amount of cut-through truck traffic we get through.
Oh, right.
We're actually we want to pave that. So part of this money here, this 2.1 request or this 1.7 that's cut down to, we would try to pave that road. That would be one we would definitely be interested in paving. Because we're tar and chipping it every 3 years, we might as well go ahead and pave it soon.
I mean, there are some roads, like Wright's Neck Road right now, that look to me like they're getting in pretty grim shape because the tar comes up and the chip is gone, and they turn into just very slick.
Very slick road, yes.
And what do we get life out of the paving typically?
A paved road should last approximately 20 years, but about 15 years or so into it, we might slurry seal that and try to get another 5 to 10 out of it, but 15 at the low end, 20 at the high.
So paving, we could bond some of the paving versus use the pay-go for the tar and chip and all. If we're getting 20 years out of the paving, we may want to think about bonding the paving and pay-go on the other stuff, just to keep it up to
It
speed.
is super expensive, yeah.
Yes.
We have used bonds somewhat for that, so.
I mean, we used to use it for all of it when I first,
Yeah, right.
but now we've kind of, but I didn't realize, if you're getting 20 years out of the paving,
Yeah.
then you're getting the life of the bond, so then.
Pave it all? Okay.
So, having said that, there is the other, which the department doesn't know about yet, but there's another 1.2 million that we were proposing, to get to the 142 number. So this 1.2, which is very sort of preliminary, but I did have, the other reductions that were part of that were 100,000 out of capital heavy equipment, which was 315, and 100,000 was taken out of that. These are not final. And then there was another 150,000 taken from asphalt overlays. These two numbers. They haven't really decided that yet, but they're sort of.
So you took 250 total out of there? Okay.
I mean, again, we could ask for priorities.
We could what?
We could ask for priorities and let them make the cuts,
Right.
more or less.
That's what I would do.
Yeah. Now, are you still planning to do the roads in the Chesapeake Bay Business Park this year using the state aid shared revenue?
Yes, the 20% is about $150,000 on the high end, expecting some overages or some things we might have missed. But yes, that's moving forward.
That's good, because it needs it in there.
They do.
It's
And they're
pretty bad shape.
they're beyond 20 years, I would say, right? They're the
30
original. they're
The
probably
back part
35?
definitely is.
Yeah, they're 35.
35 years?
35 years.
The project was ongoing when I started.
Yeah.
They look like
That's,
it.
that's an example of a very wide
look at-
section. That's a big, wide road. That's an expensive paved section.
Yeah.
They're, what are they, 46 feet?
48, I believe.
48 feet.
48 feet.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
That was almost as painless to us as it was to you.
Alan, do you own a dog?
I know where to get one.
You can have a different one every weekend.
Commissioners, if I may, would you
Absolutely.
like me to give you just a brief update regarding the Kent Island Library?
Yes, please.
We took your guidance at the update that I gave you, and we reached out to the state regarding what they might be able to do for us. The state librarian was very kind, very accommodating. She fully understood where you were coming from with regard to the deadlines. She generously agreed in writing, which we'll present to you at the appropriate time, that the letter of commitment, the certification letter, could be delivered following your approval of the budget in June. So instead of our plan to present a recommendation and everything to you at the end of this month, we'll likely come to you in June, which will give you time to get through the budget. And so the state has given us the time to do that.
Now, are you going to be able to review the bids?
We will.
And are you able to put them on hold till June?
We have.
I think, wasn't today the deadline, or?
We had extended it, presently it's extended to this coming Friday, a week from this Friday.
Okay.
So we will have bids in time, and it's 60 days. So we have plenty of time through the month
Okay.
of June.
So next Monday, you can send us a little update on what the bids look like and where the
Yes.
numbers sit.
Yeah,
Very good.
we'll do that then.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
And I believe the state librarian has confirmed that the grant money that is available, has been earmarked for Pinellas County, will be available through the state.
Yeah, that was a concern of ours, that
Right.
we
So
might
that's-
lose that.
That's solid.
Yes, she has confirmed that, and similarly in the letter that we'll give for you, we'll put that condition in there that your certification of this funding assumes that they are indeed providing that funding.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lee, thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for reaching out. That was.
Who's out there?
Okay,
The parks and the sheriff.
Sheriff's office.
Who's ever's out there, bring them on in here. It's game time.
It's game time.
Game time.
So what are you doing? You gonna go home and make margaritas? Is that?
I don't know, my wife's got dinner ready.
Tacos at
I said
home?
I'd be home by 7. She said, really? I said, yeah.
You ain't gonna be.
That's right.
Are you going over for dinner? No, you're going home?
Right up here, what are you doing? Oh, okay. Front row.
Social distancing, sir.
Yeah.
There's 6 feet. We measured it off. You gotta
Yeah.
stay way over this way, Gary.
Yeah, John, you need to slide
There we
over.
go.
Sheriff, you need to go that way.
Now the major's gotta
Okay.
sit over in the corner. That's the
Major,
difference.
you have to take that table right there.
You're on the clock, your 5 minutes have started.
Well, that was a quick cut, sir. That was a quick cut. Good evening, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. It's another great day, as long as our community and everybody's staying safe. I think we're
so we were going to kind of go through the format we're using is to go through your budget, sort of your base budget, and then they can ask questions or you can comment on that. And there's, well, let me say this, well, then we'll talk about enhancements and then the capital budget. The enhancements, I will note, are not really in detail here, but you have to go back to the page 27. So you go back to page 27, you will see, kind of at the bottom there, 2 part-time screeners and a deputy. But we'll talk about that in a minute. So here's the sheriff's budget. Starts on page 74. There's some reductions in salaries, which the sheriff can probably speak to, and he and I have talked about that. And to a large extent, there were some people who left that were at higher salaries and were replaced with, lower salaries. So that's one of the reasons that the actual salary budget goes down.
Jonathan, real quick. before
Goes down, they went down by $500,000. I mean, to me, he goes to the top of the
Well,
Christmas list.
Yeah,
we lost about four senior commanders that retired out.
Wow.
So with that, that includes obviously the salary and benefits packages and things like that.
Wow.
So Sheriff, when
Perfect timing.
Jonathan gave us a vacancies and a requested personnel. So you have 3 vacancies. Are any of them deputies?
Yeah, we just talked about this with Beverly. So we actually have 1 vacant deputy position right
You're
now.
asking for 1 additional, so 2?
We're asking for the 1, and then what we're looking at is additionally, we would need one new deputy's position for the courthouse. That's what that one new position's for. And then the 2 part-time would be for the 2 additional part-time civilian courthouse screeners.
Right.
So there's a total of those 3 positions there.
But the vacancies.
But you have 3
we're
vacancies.
saying
I was just wondering what they
You
are.
said for the PIO, and what was the other one?
Yeah, we actually have PIO, administrative assistant, 1 deputy.
Okay.
We actually have 2 deputy positions that are vacant there.
Are you set up for both courtrooms now, or deputy-wise, or what's the deal going over there?
Juggling, pulling the ones off the road that are serving papers, and the ones that are serving papers are coming off to fill in for that courtroom.
Does that work?
We'll see.
Well, no, because I can't get paper served. So it doesn't, it's working slowly, yeah, but it's not to where, that's why I think we scaled back, and after we talked,
But is that an occurring situation? I mean, how many times are 2 courtrooms in?
right now, none, sir.
Okay, good. Let's keep it that. Let's keep it that way for
Right now,
now.
there are no
Let's just keep it
Judge
that way.
Barbera's going to open the courthouse again one day, and then we're going to have to.
I think that once they get rolling, especially after the COVID epidemic or pandemic, I think courts are going to really be super busy because they're going to have a lot of stuff to get in within that 1-year time frame to provide a speedy trial.
Right.
So I think that it's going to be really busy, but we'll do our best.
Don't they need to bring on another judge?
Well, they can have, Judge Ross can sit as a senior judge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before COVID, though, how many days
Or
was
other
2
judges from other circuits would come in.
Well, they had the
courtrooms
they
were
had,
on
they had the
average?
regular court going, and then they had the master's
See if you could
court
do that for us.
as well, and then sometimes they would have another judge come in for some other civil trials as well.
So like 5 days a week that was going on, or was it 1 or 2 days? Or
Major.
About 4 days, at least 4 days a week, you had at least 2 courtrooms going.
Okay, that's what I wanted to. Okay.
And then sometimes it was 3, and Lynn Knight has promised that she's going to run 2 criminal courts on a very regular basis. She hasn't told us how many. I don't think it'll be 5 days a week. I would say
A couple extra days.
On a regular basis to make up for the closures during COVID, or just
In general.
she said that's what she wants to do from now on. She wants to do that, to spread the wealth. That's what as she says it. And then there's also the magistrate case courtroom also.
Okay.
So we are doing our best to balance the courthouse schedule now.
All right.
One of our part-times, just so everybody knows, both of our part-times that worked there, the screeners, they were working 3 days a week, but one of them needed to cut back to 2 days a week because of Social Security reasons. So that's where his request is going to be even more valuable, because one of our part-timers is now only 2 days a week instead of 3. And the part-timers are a whole lot less expensive.
All right.
So there is, I mean, the sheriff's positions, there is a certain amount of fluctuation, so I'm going to say, I think the vacancies are not 3 but 4, so we'll amend that. That's what's on page, 26, I think. Okay, so you go to the Capitol. We talk about the enhancements, want to go to the Capitol?
Yep, just,
So there's really vehicles in here, and that is for vehicles?
10.
10 vehicles.
how many vehicles do you have total?
Our total fleet is, you talking about with specialty vehicles also?
I guess. I mean, well, no,
70.
okay, yeah.
That's a pretty fair number.
So every 7 years, pretty much, they don't make it 7 years. After 6 years.
You're lucky if it makes it 7, and we have a fleet right now that we've been holding on to our 2010s and 2012s, and the electronics in them are obsolete. It's time. We need, and that's,
I'm just getting, if there's 70 and we do 10 a year,
yeah. Then you're good.
right.
Yeah,
what I'm-
that's the format. That's what we're trying to get back to.
Right, okay.
And last year, we did step back and only did 6.
Okay.
So we're kind of a little bit behind.
Right.
We're seeing that now in the aging Dodge Chargers are kind of
Well, they were a problem anyway, weren't they?
Yeah.
That was the ones that were horrible, right?
horrible car.
Yeah.
The engines. Yeah, you lose a motor in those anywhere between 105,000 and 125,000.
And then one of those vehicles that you're getting 7 years out of? Is that what you
It
said?
depends on the use of the vehicle. Some years, some vehicles get longer, but the Dodge Chargers and all, yeah, average of about 5 to 7 years probably. on the
Okay, what
average
kind of mileage are
vehicle.
you looking at after, say, 5 years?
Again, well, the average deputy does about 30 to 33,000 miles a year.
150.
Okay.
Sorry.
150 is usually what 7 years, you have about 150 on it.
Okay.
We had there were some other requests that were in the capital budget, which we moved into the operating, because they were, like the tasers, which you don't see on here requested, because we put them in the operating budget. I think it was the tasers, and so we kind of took care of that, thought it was really more of an operating kind of expense. The in-car cameras, you can see that when we met with the sheriff and we talked about taking it out because we were going to attempt to, extend, I think, the contract for another year, but I'm going to let you talk about that.
Sure. So what we did was, we've been looking at different body-worn camera systems. Currently, we have Axon now, which is a really good system. That system is coming up on its 5th year, its end of life. And that means a lot of things, whether the manufacturer is going to continue to warranty it, whether we're still going to have cloud storage. Basically, it's 5 years. We basically need to renew the contract. What we're going to try to reach out to them for is, one, for a little bit longer period of a demo with somebody that we can maybe stretch this out. And then we're also going to look to see if we can kind of pit the vendors against each other to bring that cost down. So, or at least an extended service contract with Axon to hold us over through this budget year. And that's quite a huge chunk of money.
To extend the warranty another year?
No, we don't know yet. We haven't gotten a price back, but if we were to go, we're looking at anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million for body-worn cameras for 5 years. And that's-
Problem with the Axon equipment is we don't own those cameras. That was a 5-year program that we were fortunate 4 years ago to purchase that with some excess funds we had in our budget. It was 300 and some thousand, I believe. So we purchased it for just body alone, and that's the old technology. So we purchased it for 5 years. The main cost of that is the cloud storage of the data that we own, which has to stay on the cloud for 4 years.
Sure.
So the problem with that whole system is the 5th year ends July of 2021, and technically we don't own the equipment, and we don't have a contract, and Exxon is sometimes difficult to work with, trying to get, we don't even know if it's going to be a possibility to extend the contract to keep those for 1 more year, the cameras we have, and to keep paying for the cloud.
Yeah, we're working on that now to try to see if we can get the vendor to extend that.
Okay, so we get to July of 2021, and it expires, what happens?
Well, that's why we're trying to gear up to figure out whatever way we're going to be able to go budget-wise. One way that the sheriff and I have been talking is if Axon will extend it another year for us with what we have right now with the cloud storage, that would be a good thing, or they probably want an upfront payment for that for a year. So if we can do something like that, that would be good for a year. Another option would be we're looking at the new cameras and the new contracts for another period of time. Usually it's 5 years for those companies. And then we're also looking at another company also that is comparable. So we're going to try
Cloud
to.
storage always be an issue regardless of what company you get your cameras from?
It is, but the price differences are drastically different in different companies, and you can definitely negotiate with them. So we have 2 demos that we're going to start in a couple of weeks with 2 different the 2 leading companies, and we're going to go from there.
The 5-year, I'm sorry, I just wanted to point out that we had that up on the screen, because what was actually when the sheriff submitted the budget, the 5-year program is, you can see it on there, because that was kind of the original.
But we do think we'll be able to negotiate that we think we'll.
Look, Axon's a good company. The problem is when you switch from one vendor to another, then everything changes. You've got new logins, new storage, and whether you want to retain the old storage, and do we still have to pay for the old storage while we start with a different vendor for another 4 years? So we're kind of duplicating. So seamlessly, the goal would be to stick with the existing vendor, work through this with them, and transition into.
Because you've
a
had
newer-
no issues with the cameras or the retrieving the data and everything else. Everything, the only issue is now we're coming down to.
Coming down to the end of the
We've got to
contract.
sign up or we got to move on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yep.
So
But you would incur double the cost though, right? If you leave X because
would.
of
We'd be
the
paying
3
for-
years you need for the storage? I mean, it would be double, but there would be isn't there a
It
surcharge
won't
for
be
using the
double.
cloud?
It won't be double. We've already paid, anything we have in the cloud at the end of July of '21, we own for 4 more years.
Okay, so they're honoring that side of it.
Yes,
then.
we
Okay.
own that data.
Gotcha.
So, because we paid, we bought it.
Got it.
But anything that we want to store beyond July 1st, 2021.
correct.
We need to figure that out and figure out which company.
Gotcha. Okay.
And the concern.
Are you guys, I'm sorry, Sheriff, are you guys choosing what data to store in the cloud? Or in other words, you're saying, these particular types of data, we definitely need to save these, we're not worried about?
So some things automatically push off. Some things that where a deputy doesn't tag it or doesn't store it, but some cases might be around 10 years from now. So that data may have to be saved through the whole appeals process, et cetera. So we're looking at really longer than 4 years for some of this data. Some of it will be just purged on out normally and will just disappear. But we do save, right now we save all the body worn camera footage and then the deputies tag it for whatever case. State's attorney has access to that body camera footage as well, so they can access that.
Every 42 months, our data purges. So any videos from 42 months ago, it will automatically purge unless we've held it unless we tagged it. Yeah.
Very good. All right. Anything else? Easy enough. I mean, that's we can find it, we'll take care of it. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you,
Look at the
guys.
budget, Sheriff.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thanks, guys. Great to see you. Good to see you, sir. Good to see you, sir.
Gotcha.
Bring
Jack.
Steve Shanlison, now that he knows that we gave some of his money to the sheriff.
That's right.
Actually, Steve should not be asking for much, right?
Doesn't need a truck or
Considering
something.
last year's budget.
Thank you, guys. Y'all
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you very much. All right.
We'll have you done by 7. We won't have you home by 7.
It's true. I don't think we'll be
You
done
might
by
want to
7.
stop these guys to give you, you might want to stop one of these sheriffs to give you, deputies to give you
Yeah.
a light siren ride home.
Jim doesn't need that.
You got 10 minutes, Jim.
Huh?
You got 10 minutes on your schedule.
You sit over there, Steve.
I can tell you this is longer than 10.
Joan, what'll happen is you'll switch with Mike when you're ready. I mean, you can come in, just grab a chair, you'll just take
All the way in
his
the back
spot.
there.
Right behind him in that chair.
There, or back there. There you go.
So we have the same kind of setup here with the number of different areas for Parks and Recreation, with starting with the general fund pieces and then going to the other non-general fund for public landings and
Colored balls are funny.
golf and the airport. And so it's the same format here too, where we're going to go through each of the individual areas where we have the line items, which we're kind of just going through. There isn't a ton of stuff to talk about there, but to the extent they have questions or there's anything you want to say about any of these general areas within Parks and Recreation. And then we go to the enhancements, although I don't think you have any. do
They
you?
don't have any.
They don't have any enhancements. So then we go to the capital budget. So, starting on page 63 is the parks. And the salaries and wages slightly lower. There's a slightly lower amount of part-time. We had some discussion about how we were budgeting for the part-time, And so we reduced that a little bit from FY20, but hopefully to make it sort of more in line with what they're actually going to spend. And other than that, there were some small increases in, I guess, pretty small in supplies and materials. And overall, the budget was pretty flat, actually slightly lower. So I'll go on to recreation.
Creation it is.
Recreation on page 65, and there's an increase here in the part-time salaries, which I think maybe Joan could speak to, or you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'll address it at first, and if Joan wants to fill in if I missed out on anything. Basically, we increased the part-time salaries because we were having staff cover the rentals of artificial turf fields. We need to have staff there to open and close those fields accordingly. You just can't turn them open and let folks run. So if someone comes in for a 4-hour block, we have to have someone there the entire 4-hour block to make sure that it's the right group and that they're there on time and that they leave on time as well. And the second or third group that follows successively, this is some sort of order. And in addition, it's also just, the other part of it is, we're trying to do more programs. So therefore, if you have more programs, you need more people to run those programs.
And just also because of the increase in the minimum wages, each year it goes up. So that has hit us drastically hard over the last.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's skip the other funds and go to the capital budget, which is on page 72. And so what you see here is the request was $3.3 million. And so there's a series of reductions to get to 1.7. That's part of what we've been sort of talking about is getting from the 51 million to the 41 million. Let's see, there's, I don't know what I would highlight here. I mean, to some extent, the attempt was made because we had asked the department to prioritize their, their projects. And so to the extent possible, the idea was to reflect that. There's probably more here on this list than they had on their list. But you can speak to that, and I would just, before we get to that, since there's the other sort of 1.2 million in which they probably don't know about, but which is in attempting to get the budget down to where we really think it should be in light of the pandemic, there's another $1.2 million proposed reduction to the capital budget. Not to you, but I mean overall. And I did have took the rest of the trail development 100,000 out for that. So that 100,000 was part of the 1.2.
Where it started at 400,000, and then we reduced it by 3, and we just took the other 100.
Yeah.
So we're going to go 1 year without trail development. Hey.
I think that was probably on the prioritization, was probably what you had on that list, but
Right.
I'll let him, you can go over these if you want, if you like to go over the capital.
I mean, I'll just, briefly kind of gloss over. I know when we first submitted, obviously, you were probably taken aback by the total number of the projects in totality. And then we had a conversation, we were talking about reducing it by $1 million. And so,
Right.
we went through that exercise and reduced it by $1 million, and, that was something that I was pretty well ready to look forward to. But then I see an additional, another $600,000, which was kind of a shock. And, granted, I mean, it's still good that we're getting money in these funds, don't get me wrong, but just keep in mind the money that we're getting in some of these funds isn't enough to do the projects this year. It's going to have to be built upon, successive years. So if we have, I don't know, say 12 projects here, there's not enough money in those projects to do those 12 projects. They're going to be deferred to, outlying years. And as long as, everybody is aware of that and, you know, doesn't expect to see, you know, 12 projects and expecting 12 projects to be done, it's not gonna happen. It can't happen.
Don't say can't. Come on. Come on. We've
Unless
come
we
a
find a
long way.
way.
We've come a long way in 2 years.
We have.
I mean, a huge way. Our parks, our Cross Island Trail, you know, the playgrounds, everything. I mean, great job. I mean, it's just, the upgrades to our parks are just phenomenal. And don't worry, we're going to keep that going one way or another.
Absolutely.
Don't you worry about it.
And then, you know, and obviously that's what we want to do, and we're, you know, we're looking ahead not only to increase some of the amenities, but also to take care of what we have, and I think that's the important part, and I think a key
Is maintaining it. Sure.
maintaining it, and a key idea of that is, you know, the repaving of the Cross Island Trail and the repaving of the Kent Island South Trail. I mean, those are, you know, huge investments that were made in the beginning. And at some point in time, you got to put money back into them to take care of them, and that's what we've done this past year. So
Right. Noticeable perception, public perception is noticeable improvements.
Right.
And that goes a long way.
Definitely does.
And it's been really nice for people right now when they're stuck at home. Those trails are getting tons of use.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Especially distance spacing, tons of use.
right. I mean, one thing we can see out of this whole situation is just how valuable parks and recreation are to the public. You know, it's a good way to escape out, you know, and still have some sort of other human interaction besides just being, you know, sequestered at home. And, you know, again, having a good, safe park system is important. And, you know, just like anything, those things cost money. So, you know, we want to keep
One
keep at it.
question for you, sir. Is your lawn mowing and all your equipment up to speed, or are you getting behind?
No, we've been able to maintain cutting all the grass. So we've been working.
He's talking about the equipment. The equipment.
Equipment-wise, we have the mechanic, he's keeping everything up and running. That's what we have for a couple batwings on the schedule for this year and another tractor, just to try to get some of the older stuff out. But we've purchased a good bit of stuff in the last 2 or 3 years just to keep it upgraded. You know, so we don't have to worry about downtime and patching stuff up. It's keep it running.
So you're happy with?
Yeah, with the capital equipment money that we still have in there. I mean, we can purchase everything we need to keep going, keep moving forward. So.
Good. Okay. Do we have? Yeah. I mean, Joan, did you want to say anything? You want to?
She goes,
Join the fun? Are you good back there? Okay. I mean, because public landings, I mean, the Bay Bridge Airport public landings, it's pretty cut and dry, and there's nothing here that's.
I was going to show you, I mean, usually say something about the airport, and I wanted to talk about maybe the 6-year program, but yeah, I mean, the public landings budget, none of those operating budgets were of any great significance. The golf course actually went down quite a bit because they paid off some of their debt, so the golf course budget is lower by really about $150,000, so that's good. Yeah, and these other, there were no reductions. There were no reductions to public landings or the airport.
Well, the airport operating looks like it's down by 30,000, so.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, that's.
I would just show,
The same with public landings, so.
well, anyway, the, I don't know, maybe we're early.
Hey, Steve, quick question.
Yes.
Show the
If the
6-year.
governor announces tomorrow that we
Show the
can open
6-year.
our golf courses, how many days away are we from that announcement that you can be open?
I'd have to double check with Eric about getting staff. Staffing is going to be the hard part.
Okay. I just
And
have
if
this
staffing
funny
wants to-
feeling we're going to get that sooner rather than later. That'll be one of those non-essentials that will be opening first,
Right.
and they're going to make tee times that day.
Right. And, you know, obviously, we can make it happen. It'll just be a little bit harder. Obviously, you know, people want to work.
Yeah.
But again, you still might have some people
for the
that are
airport.
a little apprehensive, you know,
Right.
depending on their.
I guess
their
that's probably
health
just
and
more of a
age and
heads
things like
up.
that.
I mean, if you guys agree or disagree, I just think that we talk about, you know, recreational boating is, you know, the social distancing elements there, same with golf. I just think once we get that green light from the governor, I think those tee times are going to start plugging pretty quick, and so.
I think you're going to see golf's going to be twosomes only on carts. So one person per cart. One person.
That's wonderful. Open and ready to go.
Right.
Walking though, you can do 4.
So I'm just saying, put that back here, because I think that's coming sooner rather than later.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we can make it happen. I mean, Eric has staff. You know, if we have to, we can, you know, shift some other people down there just to help in the meantime, just to get through that crush period.
And then, of course, compliance with social distancing, like tee times and paying and, you know, cart people cleaning the carts off, you know, thinking about that component and having those protocols in place.
And it's also making sure that, you know, people leave the stick in. You don't touch the stick. You can just go ahead and play, you know, with it in.
Signage. I mean, you think about it, we're going to need signage to direct people as to what to do, what they can and can't do. So
Are we talking about their golfing skills or something else?
So anyway, I have this gut feeling, buddy.
There you go. Go ahead, John.
I just want to point out on the airport, we're showing you the 6-year here because the airport, you know, for FY21 is, it's not a huge amount. There's actually the fuel depot, which is not exactly their project. It's more of a general services project. But if you look at the 6-year, there are some larger costs down the road in terms of the runway rehabilitation.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't we like at a 90-10 on that runway? Don't we get the...
Hang on here, because this thing is more complicated than anybody would know, because the runway is prodigiously expensive, like millions of dollars. So even the 10, we kind of needed to, in order to cover the budget, to get the sale of the piece of land, which now is jammed up. Maybe I'd really not want to talk about that project outside of executive session, sir.
Okay, all right.
So it just, there's some potential costs down the road, but
Okay.
that's it.
Any questions for Parks? Recreation? Any comments? Life is good?
Thank you. We'll be here accepting donations as needed.
Absolutely.
We'll be coming in for 2 vehicles.
That's right. There you go.
Through the sheriff's office.
And then we'll
I
be
understand.
talking about fireworks at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Correct.
Oh,
And then
very
just-
good.
Just FYI, Commissioners, it sounds like the town of Centerville has canceled their fireworks display
Okay.
for this year. I did find that out. Just wanted to throw that out there for your information today.
So Todd, if we close the Heritage Center portion of it down, people can still watch fireworks from their car. They do it all the time. I don't know why.
For their boats, if they're allowed to
And what's the
build them?
penalty? It's $4,000 on a $25,000
No,
bill,
no,
right?
that's if it goes past a certain date. We'll talk about it Tuesday.
I don't know.
It's
I
time
don't
yet. Yeah.
People that sit in their cars and,
Yeah, right.
so, I mean, there's a way to do it.
There's a way.
So you know where I'm coming from Tuesday already?
I do.
Let's shoot them off.
I'm ahead.
Okay.
Drive-in farmer.
There
I'm
you
gonna shoot them
go.
up higher so they can see it farther.
They don't have to leave
Put 'em
the
into
rest of
the
my
stratosphere.
backyard that way. You want him to bring that up?
Get some rockets on them.
That's it. Anything else, Todd?
Yes, Jim.
One other item, yes, we have one
Okay.
other item.
The Housing Authority?
Yes.
Yeah, this is a letter that Commissioner
Gotta sign it.
Corcoran had asked about. This is a letter just requesting the Housing Authority to help with the recruitment and selection recommendation process for a vacancy they have coming up on their board at the end of this.
I move that we sign the letter to the Housing Authority asking if they have any recommendations for the upcoming vacancy.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? So moved. There you go.
Great, thank you.
Anything else?
There you go.
That's all I had.
So we're good to go?
Good to go.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.